What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 2 of Demi Dad Saturday Sit Down. Today is December 26th, 2020, a year to forget. So, anyway, I hope everyone had a good family family time and was able to enjoy the holidays with your family and your loved ones within COVID guidelines, as obviously. But yeah, we had a good time. We spent the Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with my wife's side of her family, and we got together, and opened presents and things like that. And it was great. It was fun. Last week I had talked a little bit about how I have a very stressful full-time job, and I work part-time at a church, and all of our services are online. So there's a lot of preparation and a lot of recording music and things to get ready for the Christmas Eve service, as well as get ready for tomorrow's service ahead of time, so that we wouldn't have to do it Christmas weekend. So I'm exhausted, and then also with my full-time job, just making sure that everything is done ahead of time so that I can actually go on vacation and enjoy the time off with my family. So it was kind of going, and then Christmas hit, and I had to go really hard in order to make sure that I could actually enjoy the Christmas holiday. So I'm tired. I'm exhausted. It's Saturday morning. You're probably going to be watching this. If you're watching it when it's released, it should be released Saturday afternoon at some point. But yeah, so going into kind of what we did for Christmas and Christmas Eve, and how it kind of relates to to my anxiety and stuff. I'll just kind of go get into it. So we had something Christmas Eve morning. We went and did that, and then I also volunteer for a new church here in the area called Gathering 208. So our gatherings are less than are within COVID guidelines, so they actually meet in person. And so we had a Christmas Eve service to get ready for that. So I was playing music, getting ready to play music for that. So we had that on Christmas Eve, and then right after that, we rushed to leave there to go to my wife Jordan's grandma's house out in Middleton, Idaho, for like a Christmas Eve get together, and we had family there, and we had food and stuff, and it was great. I was just so tired. I was so tired with everything that I had to get done that I'll kind of get into this, but I couldn't stop my mind from thinking about everything. Normally a thing that I do when I'm anxious is I stop my brain from thinking so I don't have to feel anything, and that wasn't going to be possible this year, and it ended up being a great thing. So, but anyway, getting into this, so we had Christmas Eve service. So we went straight to Grandma's house, and we she gets us presents or like Christmas Eve pajamas that we open up on Christmas Eve, and we take presents from her and take them home or wherever we're going to open up Christmas morning. And I remember, I had mentioned last week on the episode that when it comes to family gatherings and places where I have to go or be around people, I have this weird thing where my brain is like, okay, we have to turn on. We have to be, because I'm a extroverted introvert where I love being around people, but they really drain me. And so I have to mentally prepare for it. So going into Christmas and Christmas Eve, I'm like, I have to prepare for this, and I have to do this, and I have to be on, and I have to be funny, and I have to make people laugh and not be like center of attention or anything, because I don't want to be center of attention, but I do want to make the people around me feel good. And so I feel like I put this weird responsibility on myself to have to like be on and be in the moment and involved with whatever's going on. But this year, I think it's because of just how much I put my body through going into preparation to be able to relax and be in the moment on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day that I physically could not turn off my brain. And I talked before about how when I've been anxious, I would need to just go sit in the backyard in the cold and just stare at a fence and literally think about nothing and think about just turn my brain off and just rest my brain and rest my body and just do absolutely nothing. Well, this time, another little backstory this week, a few days before Christmas Eve, we got some devastating news from my side of the family. And so kind of wrestling with that, as well as getting everything ready for the two Christmas Eve services, tomorrow's service, as well as everything for my full-time job. It's just been go, 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 go. I remember sitting at Christmas Eve dinner, and I've got my food in front of me, my family's around, we're all talking, we're enjoying time, and I remember just thinking, like, I am so exhausted that I'm listening to the conversations around me, and I'm coming up with, like, things that I would like to add to the conversation, things that I would like to say, things that I could, sirens, Lord be with that situation, whatever's going on, amen. I was hearing these conversations and coming up with things that I wanted to say, and like some of them were funny jokes, some of them were just like questions that I'd have to ask people or want to ask people, but I physically couldn't say anything. Like I was in the conversation and in the moment in my brain, but my body was just sitting there staring at my food and slowly eating. And it wasn't that anything was wrong. I think it was just total exhaustion. But it ended up being, my wife took me aside and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I mentioned last week how I hate that question, and I told her that. I was like, I hate that question. And she was like, "I'm your wife." I was like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, you're right. You are my wife. You kind of get a pass." And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm dealing with, some things, but I'll be okay." And we kept eating. I think we played like Pictionary. We played some other games. We always do a nativity scene at Grandma's house. So we had people dressed up and to do a scene as we read the nativity story and from the Bible and stuff like that. And it was fun. But man, I'm getting a lot of like feedback here. But I just remember feeling like I can't not feel these feelings. And I was just so overwhelmed. I needed to rest, and I needed to let myself feel things. And in the past, in my anxiety journey, that has been a very difficult thing for me to do, is allow myself to feel things, because when we have anxiety or we have depression, that's why so many people turn to alcohol or turn to drugs or Xanax even, because we don't want to feel these things, because it can be so detrimental to our way of life and what we do in our daily routines with our family. Like we can't function if we're feeling these things. But it came to a moment where I just needed to turn off my brain and rest. No, not turn off my brain. Turn off my body and let my brain just be overwhelmed with these feelings and be overwhelmed with what I had been dealing with the last few days. And that's sometimes the hardest thing, and the most dreaded, is to allow, at least for me and my anxiety, is to allow myself to feel things, because there's been times where I lash out or I get angry or I'm so overwhelmed with these feelings and emotions that I don't know how to process them, and I'll take it out on my wife, or I don't really hit her or anything, but I just I'm in a grumpy mood, and that's not fair. So I think that's why it's socially acceptable to just not feel anything and turn to like Xanax or medicine and things like that. And I'm not against that. I'm not against medicine. I'm on medicine for my anxiety and depression, and it's a good way to keep me kind of balanced, but it doesn't stop the anxiety attacks or feeling these things 100%. And I don't think, unless if you take enough to where you're literally not yourself anymore, then it will. But at what cost? So I'm on very low doses of my medicine because I don't want to be numb. I want to get in a place where I can overcome these issues that I'm dealing with, and that is why I am filming this podcast. That's why I started this, so I can move closer to healing. And not to take away from, like, if you need to turn off your brain and just think about nothing in order to get to a place where you can heal, and you need to get to a place where you can relax yourself, that's not a bad thing. I do that all the time. I do that all the time where I just need to, like, I'll tell my wife, hey, I just need to sit here and just, like, give me like 10 minutes and I just need to sit here and not think about anything. But for me this time, I knew that I was in a place where I needed to heal, and I was in a safe place where I could, or a safe place mentally where I could feel these emotions and I could experience what I needed to experience, and I wouldn't have any bad side effects of, like, lashing out or getting angry or throwing a fit or whatever. I knew that in my headspace that I could allow myself to feel these feelings in order to move towards the next step. And so that's a very self-observant thing. You need to be self-aware enough that you know when you can and cannot do that. It's like if you're dealing with addiction, let's say you have a candy addiction. We're gonna keep it with, like, the pleasant addictions. Let's say you have a candy addiction, and you want candy, but you're trying to stop eating candy. There's going to be times where you can't go to Walmart and go anywhere near, or even go to Walmart. Like, let's say it's an extreme addiction. Like, you can't even go to the store without going and buying candy and eating 15 bags of gummy worms or Skittles or whatever. You need to be self-aware enough that you can't put yourself in that position to go to the store. You need to, if it's really an issue and it's really a problem, you need to be self-aware enough that you know you cannot put yourself in those positions, and you need to not do it. There's people who are in denial still, and they're like, oh, I can go to this situation, I can do this. But if you have the self-awareness to know, I can't go to the store, or I can't go to that side of the store because the temptation is going to be too great, but you can go to the store and know that you have the discipline enough to stay away from that side of the store, that's a step closer. And I've even told my wife, because she loves candy, it's not an addiction, but she loves candy, and she was trying to stop eating so much candy. And I told her, well, if there's times where you feel like, hey, I know that I can go to the store, and I know that, I'm in a headspace where I'm not going to buy candy. I told her, you walk down the candy aisle knowing that you're not going to buy anything, knowing that you're not going to buy, but if you're tempted and you know that, like, oh, I might buy if I see something good or a good deal, then don't do it. But if you know that you can do it, it's okay to give yourself a little bit of a feeling of temptation, but in a headspace that you've already overcome it, because then you physically act on it, knowing you already overcame it in your mind. That way you can physically overcome it, and then you have two victories. And I mean, if you're an alcoholic and you're like, I'm going to go to the bar and talk to my friend, but I'm not going to drink anything, don't do that. That's not what I'm talking about. I mean, if you're a year sober and you go to a party and you know, like, I'm not going to be tempted by this, but I want to go, and you're really in a place where you are self-aware enough, you are responsible enough, and you are self-disciplined enough to know that you can go to this thing and find victory in it. And you're not always going to find victory, but that's where the self-awareness comes in. You know, like, you know that you're going to find victory in it. I think it's okay to go to these things and put yourself in a place where you're in a better spot now than you were maybe 5 weeks ago. where if you stop drinking and you can't go to the milk section in Walmart without wanting to buy beer, but then 5 weeks later, after you've worked and worked to become sober and you know you're in a good spot and you purposefully walk down the beer aisle just to feel achievement, I think that's a very positive thing. And I could be wrong on the mental. I mean, again, I'm not a mental health professional. This is just my own brain thinking. Like if that's a way for you to find victory and continue healing, then I'm all for it. As long as you are self-aware enough to know that you're not putting yourself in a detrimental position that could reset everything. I'm all for that. I hope that makes sense. And I wrote here in my notes, only if you are in a place where you know you can resist, it will make you stronger. Because then you go to a party where, a year later, where you're like, oh, I am kind of tempted. But you have the experience of being at a party and remember a year ago, I resisted this once. And I physically did it. So the muscle memory kicks in. I physically was here. I physically resisted. When people offered me a drink, I said no, or people, whatever. You physically did it in a place where you were more mentally stable, that you can tap into that when times you are tempted or that you are struggling. Maybe I'll have counselors on and talk about this, but I'm very passionate about this because I feel like if you go 10 years sober, but you've never put yourself in a place where you were somewhat tempted and overcame it, the first time you are tempted and you're not in a mentally stable position to resist it, you're gonna relapse. So it's all about those building blocks and those steps to healing. But again, in a controlled environment where not a controlled environment within your brain that you can resist this. So anyway, so I allowed myself to feel it. I allowed myself to feel everything that's going on. And I was in a place where I knew that I could feel these feelings. I could feel these emotions. There were times where I was like on the brink of tears. And it wasn't the whole night. It was like every once in a while, I would just need to sit and just let myself feel these emotions. And it was really good because it ended up, because I was letting myself have the moments I needed to feel the negative things, to feel things that hurt, feel things that were overwhelming, feel things that I didn't know what I was feeling, but I allowed myself to feel them, that when I was not on, but when I was engaged in what was going on and I had a little bit more energy, it made those good feelings exponentially better. Where when I was feeling anxious, I wasn't turning my brain off, because normally when I turn my brain off and then I go and I have more energy, I go and try and engage in what's happening, my brain is still off and I can't experience the good. And that was a realization I just had. Because it made the night way better. And I even went and just fell asleep on one of the beds in my wife's grandma's house. And because I knew, I was like, I'm exhausted. I need to rest my body as well. I took a nap, but on the way home, I remember, even though I was struggling at times in the night, I turned to my wife on the way home and I said, that was a really good Christmas Eve. That was so much fun. And it's because I didn't turn my brain off when I was struggling. I let myself feel, and I know I'm probably a broken record now, but it's so amazing to me because I let myself feel the negative that I was feeling, surrounded by people who love me, surrounded by my wife who supports me, surrounded by things like that. But I was still feeling these negative things, and I let myself feel them. That 10 minutes later, my brain said, okay, cool, we felt those. We can move on. 10 minutes later, I'm like, hey, I'm going to play Pictionary with my family. And I did, and it was a blast. And then I felt anxious a little bit later. I don't know why. And I went and took a nap. I woke up, got ready, went home. And on the way home, I told my wife, I was like, that was really fun. That was amazing. I didn't dwell on my anxiety. I allowed my brain to work through it in a space that I knew it wouldn't turn bad. And that's important. You know that you're going to be able to come through it in a better way. You're going to be able to, it's going to be positive at the end. So anyway, it's day after Christmas. I don't want to make this too long, so I'll probably go for another 10 minutes or so. Christmas Day was kind of the same thing. My wife's family has the tradition where her and her brothers wake up at 5 in the morning and watch Baby's Day Out, because when they were kids, that was the only movie. They woke up one Christmas morning and they had a specific amount of time before they were allowed to wake up their parents. And Baby's Day Out was a movie, not a Christmas movie. That was just the movie that fit that time frame. So they watched that movie until they were allowed to wake up their parents, and they've done it ever since. So I sleep through that part. But they woke up. They watched their movie. We woke up my son Leland. We brought him into the parents' room, to my wife's parents' room, to wake them up, and he said, "Santa brought us a bunch of presents," because that's when he wants to say there's a lot of something. He says a lot of bunch or a lot of huge. Super cute. Anyway, so we opened up presents for a couple hours. We had cinnamon rolls. We had breakfast. Then we got the house ready for people to come over. The rest of the family that were around all the time. So it's within COVID regulations and things like that. So don't even get in the comments with that. But they came and, normally we play video games with my wife's brothers and, the kids. They play video games. We play with toys. We do all this stuff. And I was in the headspace where, like, I literally didn't want to play video games, which is weird because I go over there and I want to play video games with them all the time. And I'm not even a video game guy, really, but I love playing video games with them. And I took like 3 naps throughout the day, like one in the living room, one in the family room, and then one in like my wife's brother's bed, like just on top of the covers, like later in the afternoon. I took like 3 naps, and I knew that my body needed it, and I knew that my brain needed it. But again, it was the same thing where I allowed myself to feel the emotions when I needed it. I did what my body needed, and my wife was supportive. She's like, "Hey, if you need to take a nap, go take a nap. We're here all day. That's not gonna hurt my feelings. We're gonna play cards. Do what you got to do." So again, that's the communication with your loved ones, and making sure that you are talking it through with people, and you're transparent with yourself and with your family and people around you. I wouldn't say shove it in people's face like, "Oh, I'm anxious, I blah blah blah. You need to not be so loud because I'm feeling anxious." No, don't do that. Just be honest and transparent. But by the end of the night, there's only positive things that I could remember about the day, even though I was feeling anxious and depressed and struggling and emotional and on the verge of tears again on Christmas Day. Like, it was a wonderful day because of those times when I felt that. I didn't allow myself to drag myself down. I allowed myself to feel those in order to pull myself up and pull myself out of it and experience the wonderful things about the day, more so because my brain was in a spot where it was almost like sensitive to emotion. And I'm a very emotional guy, and it's not like I was like crying. I'm not like bipolar or anything. Nothing against anyone who's bipolar, but I don't have issues where like I'm extremely angry and then extremely sad. It was more of just like I just needed a rest in order to engage in what was going on. Again, I wrote here, anxiety is at the end. It does suck at times, but if we can learn to use it to make us strong, we can begin to heal. And again, it's not an end game. It's not a journey to the end of no anxiety. It's about becoming better versions of ourselves, and using what things in our life that we have been dealt in order to become better. I don't know what I wrote. We has people to have, I don't know what I'm saying. We as people, I don't know what I wrote here. But we're so overwhelmed with emotion and things that we need to make it so that we don't feel anything at all. Typically, as people who are anxious, we try and get rid of it. So Xanax, alcohol, drugs, whatever. That is useful at times. Not alcohol and drugs, but medicine prescribed to you by a doctor or a mental health professional. But once we start seeing anxiety as a gift, because we can not only feel the bad things to an extreme, we can use it and learn to teach ourselves to allow ourselves to feel. Man, I wrote terribly in this, but I get what I'm trying to say. We can feel bad things to an extreme as people who struggle with this, but if we can be self-aware enough and disciplined enough to use it as a gift and use it as a tool, we can teach ourselves to feel the good things to an extreme as well. And not an extreme as a bad, but just as an extreme as more than what we're used to. Maybe we're going to start feeling normal amounts of happy as people who don't struggle with things like this. Not saying we're all a bunch of sad people, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Like, to really maximize our time when things are good, maximize the moments when we're good. And when we think back on it when we're in the future, we're thinking back to situations and scenarios, we're going to be thinking about the good things. We're going to be thinking about the things we remembered and the emotions we felt and the way we made other people feel and the way that other people made us feel. And that's what it's all about. It's about family. It's about love. It's about kindness. It's about becoming better. It's about healing, being better versions of ourselves, and taking care of ourselves. Even just the realization of viewing anxiety as a gift or a tool puts us on a better road to healing. It will improve our relationships. It will improve our lives to a point where maybe I can get off medicine. Even the low dose medicine that I'm on, I can get fully off of it because my body is trained and prepped to handle situations and to flip them and turn them into good. And I want that for you guys too. There's so many people on my friends list. Like, I have so many friends who I went to high school and middle school and elementary school with who have committed suicide since then. And it breaks my heart. And that's where the sense of responsibility for this podcast comes. I can't sit back and do nothing anymore. So if I can just help one person, all worth it. I will do this podcast every day or every week for the rest of my life if I can help one person. Anxiety is not all sunshine and rainbows, but I hope that you're able to have a start, that this is a start for you. It's a start for me, that we can forgive ourselves. We can have conversations with people about it. We can open up communication. We can talk to the people we're closest with, our family, our friends, because it's all about this journey and hearing or unlearning to love ourselves, hearing what other people have to say, hearing, even just talking about it for me has helped me because, yeah, I experience these things on a daily basis, but even just talking about it to myself has just really helped. It's about learning to take care of ourselves and love each other more and more each and every single day. I'm going to sign off. You can follow me on Instagram. You can follow me at Facebook. Follow the show on YouTube. Thank you for everyone on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We love you guys. Take care of yourself. See you guys next week.